Ciao jewelry makers, I'm Joey Balistreri, and you are jumping into a work in progress, but I planned this project this way and to share it this way because it is really enjoyable but very repetitive. I made a beaded chain for this project and several components, and literally after designing the patterns that would go on, it was just a repetitive thing. So I have saved a few to do with you together and connect. And this whole design was inspired by a vintage Joan Rivers necklace that I sold on my website many years back. I'll pop a picture up for you so that you can see what inspired it. And I was just looking through some past jewelry, and the little cube sections on that necklace got me to thinking, how could I recreate the design but update it and make it more lightweight and in a color that I would really love. So I created these funny little components, and I will tell you what I have chosen for each one. But I have done two of these, and I have an idea on how to connect them, and we're actually going to do a third one. And then I want to, I'm laying it here on the mat. I've created this little component, and I'm going to do another one of those and create sort of a triangle. And then I am upcycling these gorgeous, what are they? Drops? Spears? I don't know. But I love this. These were from a department store necklace that I bought for a cruise, and I wore it, but the chain and the rest of it, it was just fashion jewelry, were just totally destroyed after a few wears. And so I just rescued these little drops from it, and they have quite a nice little weight to them, and I just love the sheen. And if the camera is showing you, one is hammered and one is smooth, and I like that they're offset. So what I did is create a beaded chain, and I have this one side of the necklace done, and it is comprised of two different components which I alternated. And so here's what one looks like, the smaller one, and here's the little bit larger one. And I made my own jump rings using the same wire and alternated connecting those components so it looks something like this when it comes together. And then I made two sections for my drops. So they're a little bit alternated, and that was so that I could keep these offset and not landing in exactly the same spot. And then I think I'm going to use one of these check glass crystal cathedral beads that has the gold wash on both ends, and I just did simple loops, and I think that's going to be my middle connection. So let me just tell you quickly what went into this project. I have recently discovered Potomac pearls. So these gorgeous pearls, they are all so close to the very expensive Swarovski pearls that I used to use in bead weaving. They are just stunning. So I have these antique gold 3mm Potomac pearls, the glass pearls. The coating is just gorgeous, the luster. So because in 2024 we are going to see pearls trending, I wanted to include some pearls, but in a really contemporary 2024 fashion. So if you remember the picture of the old necklace that I don't have anymore, it had a stone right in the middle of each of the squares. And so I created that look by loading on 4 of those glass pearls right in the middle of my design to kind of mimic the design of the necklace that I don't have anymore. And the other thing is these beautiful cathedral beads in the crystal with the gold on the ends. So I know for sure that I'm going to use one here, but I'm also considering using one at the top where the chain is going to meet my top component. I'm not sure how I will feel about that, but I have some extra ones here. I did pull out a little bit of my favorite chain, and I don't know if I'm going to need to use it, but I wasn't sure if I would have enough of the other beads. So I have that here on the side of my mat. And I had a strand from our local wholesaler of these cylinder beads that are clear, and that is what went into my beaded chain. And I have to say, they are stunning with the gold wire going through the middle. I don't know if it's showing up, but it in person, it's just gorgeous. You see that little gold rod, and you know, it just floating right through the middle of the bead. So also the seed bead selection. These were the 3 seed beads that I put into this project. These are these two are 11O and these are 8O. And I honestly debated about the gold on this. I do have a little bit of a mix of gold, but if you will notice, the reason I chose these really bright metallic gold 8O seed beads for this component was to really coordinate it with how bright the gold is in my upcycled drops. So that was I hope this isn't too much information, but I wanted to give you the idea, the way my idea came about and the way I make my design decisions. And you know, maybe that will help you if you're going to try to duplicate this project or do something similar. So the other thing is I really liked these 2 seed beads together because this one is just gold, but it's almost a matte, like a very opaque gold. And this one is a crystal gold. And so it has a little bit of sparkle. It has like a gold lining in a crystal seed bead. And together, they just made a really great component. So have another look at the little component. You can see those crystal gold ones in the middle of those more matte opaque gold. And I'm just so far really thrilled with the way this piece is turning out, and I did a lot of it in advance because it can be boring to sit and watch someone repetitively make simple loops over and over again. And literally once I settled on my patterns, it was just repetitive to get to the lengths that I wanted. But I did save a couple to do with you. So we'll go ahead and do the other one of these drops, which is going to be the V. And I have one more of my Potomac pearls here. And let's see, I need to pull in some of those matte seed beads. That is the only thing I used on that particular component. Were not that many. That is way too many. But anyway, I'm just going to duplicate this, and I think I did 9. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes. So in the way I decided on that was just simply looking at my empty wire and focusing on the negative space that I would be creating. So I was happy with that. It was appealing to me. So, but you can shorten this, you know, if you want your negative space to be shorter, you could do that. But I was just coordinating with the drama of these 2 drops, and I just settled on 9 and then the pearl in the middle and then making another simple loop on the end, and I really liked the length of that. Now, some of these seed beads have been a little bit challenging to get onto this 20 gauge wire, but you know, you can see that I've done it. So it's just a little bit of, I had to set a few of them aside. They just did not want to go. But that is just typical. The component that I made off camera just went on smoothly. I did have to skip over a few of these 11O seed beads because they didn't want to go on a piece of 20 gauge wire. But literally the minute that I started the camera, I had 5, 6 seed beads in a row that wouldn't go on the wire, and I even started to second guess if I had gotten the wrong size wire for the second part. But it's just Murphy's Law that when the camera's rolling, things go wrong. The dogs start barking, the doorbell rings. It's the way that it is. So anyway, I did get it finished, and I'm going to show you how I did my simple loops. Of course, you can do your simple loops with your pliers. if that's the way you are comfortable with, but I am using my one-step looper in the 1.5 millimeter because I really wanted perfect, consistent loops on this, and I know that many people do not like that tool, but I love it, and I've practiced with it a lot, so I have really good success with it. And I'm going to go really slowly and show you a couple of my secrets to getting these components just right. So when I put the wire in, I want to make sure that I can close it a little bit even to have more control. And I want to make sure that this part of the tool is not crushing or putting any pressure on my bead. And you can even back off just a little bit, leaving, a little millimeter of space in there, and then very slowly close the tool, and you can see the little mandrel inside. And then what I do is just pull that wire down with the beads and just pull it right out of the way. And now what I love, especially for a project like this, now this one is perfectly straight, but if it were not, this is not going anywhere in this tool, and I can take my pliers and straighten my wire. I can have a look that my loop is centered right on that wire. So it's a little bit off because of the way I put it in the tool, but that is totally okay because I want to make sure that it's closed really well, and I also like to do just a little opening and closing with my pliers and just make sure it's work hardened. Not that it will get a lot of stress, but it just makes me happy to do it, and I get the most perfect loops and components with my one-step looper. And especially on a project like this where I did 6 bars this way and then 1 top and bottom, so that's 8 on each of these squares, and I'm going to do a 3rd one. So that is a lot of loops, and that tool just helps me. But you can absolutely do your simple loops by bending it with your pliers and rolling it back with the tip of your round nose pliers. But anyway, there's my 2 downward little bars that are going to create the triangle, and then I think that cathedral bead is going to go there. And then I know that I'm getting out of the view of the camera, but my downward drops will go next. And so we're going to do the last square component together. I've already done all of the bars exactly the way that I just did that one. So I'm just going to connect with you just so you can see. And it is so much fun to make these squares. Oh my goodness. I thoroughly enjoyed making the squares, especially when all the components were done and I started putting it together. It is just a really fun thing to do. So I started with another piece of that 20 gauge wire, and I will tell you the inches, I didn't even measure, I totally eyeballed it, but so it's about 2 inches long. I just did what looked good to me and then repeated that same length all the way through my project. And then I'm going to pull this one over just so I can make sure that I'm copying the pattern. So in between where I am threading the downward bars onto the cross wire, I used these 11-0 seed beads as the spacers. I just love these. These are the crystal and gold lines. So I'm going to dump some of these out on the mat. And these are 11-0 just like the matte ones, but for some reason on the 20 gauge wire, a lot of the matte ones didn't want to go on the wire, where almost every one of these just slid right on. So the pattern is to start with one of these little gold line seed beads. Of course, the first one I pick up doesn't want to go on, and just string that down to the end. And then I'm going to take one of these bars, and I want to do it so that I can barely see where my loop looks so perfect, but I do know that that's the open end. So I'm going to face that to the back, and then I'm going to thread on 2 more of the gold lined seed beads, and then another one of the gold bars, so you can see where it's going, and then 2 more of the seed beads, And you know, like if you want to make these beads larger and not be using 11O seed beads, and what were these pearls, 3 millimeter pearls, I wanted this to be really lightweight and very dainty, and I wanted my components to be small like that. But if you want to use the pattern and use larger selection for beads, that is absolutely doable. So then right in the middle of this component is going to be the bar with the 2 pearls. And then I used another one of the 3 millimeter pearls as the spacer there, because you'll see when I thread this second one on in order to create my square of pearls in the middle, that pearl up there, it looks great, but it also makes these 2 downward rods lay perfectly next to each other. And then I'm going to resume back with my 2 seed beads as the spacer. And I just really wanted to add a little design element to this the 20 millimeter craft wire. I just, didn't want bare wire. So I really love the look of the seed beads that I chose, because it just sort of covers the wire, and it looks like so much more than just craft wire. So that was my design decisions. And again, I hope I'm not giving you way too much information, but I thought maybe it would be helpful to kind of, when you watch someone else work and you're looking at something they designed, to sort of know where their head was. And maybe that helps you when you look into your own stash to make your own design selections. So it is simple as that, just threading on. I probably worked on my components for about 2 hours before I started videotaping it, just to help you if you're going to do this project. I spent a little bit of time pulling out beads, and then a little bit of time designing the pattern and creating it so that they're all the same length. And then once I knew what I was doing, I had to sit and make all of the components, which is all simple loops. The rosary chain or beaded chain is all simple loops and stringing. So it was very repetitive. And then I don't want to forget my last bead, just so that it's the same. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did on the other, even though I have these drops here. I'm just going to ignore them, and I want to try to get my loop going in the same direction and bring in my 1-step looper and make sure that I'm being cautious about that last little seed bead, because it's very small and it wants to sneak into the jaws of the tool, and I don't want it to. I also want to make sure that I'm getting my loop. Really, I would say with all the practice that I've done with this tool, that going slowly is the secret to using this tool well, is just going slowly and then maintaining control. Just pull that bar down. I just go slowly and have a look that everything is straight. And this one didn't stay perfectly straight, but I have total control of it. And so now I can remove the tool and just work harden a little bit. See, I got a perfect simple loop, but I'm just going to work harden that a little bit. And now we're going to string the bottom. So I have another piece of 20 gauge wire with a simple loop already made on the end. And it's exactly the same thing, where I just pick up one of those gold lined seed beads, and maybe it will be easier if I lay it down on the mat. And so I just pick up one of the gold lined seed beads and go through that first simple loop at the opposite end, and then 2 more seed beads, and then go through the next loop, and literally exactly what we did on the top bar of this component. I know it's down on the mat, and I hope you're able to see. It's a little bit far away from the camera, and the camera is between my face and my project when I put it down on the mat like this, but I think we can get it. And that is just simply all you do. It's a threading on pattern. And for me, this was like the really exciting part when I had sat and made all of these components, and then it started to come together and I could really see. I need to ream this little pearl a bit. I had to do this to a couple of the Potomac pearls. I keep this little bead reamer just on the side of my table. It came in a set. It's just a little Amazon tool, and it really comes in handy. And on these little Potomac pearls, almost all I had to do was just put it through the hole just to unblock it a bit. And then it just threads. Yeah, they are so small. And just thread it right on that wire. And then, let's see, the next bar. Just don't want to be talking and get lost in my pattern. 2 seed beads, the next bar, 2 seed beads, and the last bar, and then the last little seed bead to go on the end. And so this little square component is made, and we just need to add the last simple loop on this side. And I'll just repeat the process again. Just going to get it in the tool. There's a little bit to manage with the tool and everything that I have dangling from this component, but as I said, my secret is just to go slowly. Have a good look before you start closing down. So I'm a little bit far away. Let me move up a tiny bit. I'm careful that that seed bead is not in the jaws of the tool, and just close it really slowly. And as it's closing, I can see where it is bending the wire, and I'm not stressing my bead, and then I can pull that wire down, which is centering the loop right with the other one and on the wire. And then when I remove the tool, sometimes I get it absolutely perfectly, and sometimes I have to close my loop a bit. But when I'm making my simple loops with round nose pliers, that's the same thing. It's, you know, it's the human hand and the human eye, and it isn't perfect every time. But this, for me, this comes pretty close. So now we have our third little square, and now it is time to literally connect everything. So let me clear away. Oh, I didn't tell you, I have this little salt dish here with the little crystals, the rondelle crystals that I used for, well, both of the components. The little small one has 2 crystals, and there is a 3mm Potomac pearl in the middle, and then the longer component has one of those 2 beads with a crystal flanking it, and the gold seed bead. And so this is really just a matter of connecting everything that is left here. Let me clean up my mat just a little bit. I am a person that works a lot better when things are neat and clean. So you'll always see me taking a minute to throw away my little wires and, you know, tidy up so that my work surface is clean. And I think it's better for you too when there's not so much activity on the beading mat. So I am going to make some jump rings. I have already made a few jump rings, but I will definitely need more. And I am using this 20 gauge Bead-A-Lon round, medium tempered German style wire that I always use. Let me see if I can find the end. And I'm going to cut off a pretty good length because I need a lot of jump rings. And that is another trick. I chose to do jump rings. Let me just show you the beaded chain that's done so far. I chose to do the jump rings in between the components for a couple of reasons. My strand of these clear cylinder beads was quite short, and I was worried that I wouldn't have enough to get the length that I wanted in my chain. So the jump rings help with that. They add a little bit of length to the chain. The other thing is, if you can see, with the jump ring in between the components and the simple loops, the chain is just really fluid. It just hangs beautifully and bends beautifully. So I really like that. The other reason, the third reason that I love making my own jump rings is that I am using the same 20 gauge wire that I used for every single one of these components, for all of these bars that I made. It's all the same wire, so my necklace is coordinating. Even though I have mixed some golds, that is just really, it makes me happy to know that all of my wire, you know, is the same and it matches. And so again, I am upcycling these drops, and they were a really bright, shiny gold. So I pulled in those really shiny seed beads to try to just tie everything together. So I have a little bail making plier here. I also have a tool that is made for jump rings. Let me show you. I have this little set of mandrels that's also made for jump rings, and they work really well, I have to say. And I can link these below if you're interested. I end up using them for other things besides jump rings, but I have this tool and I just love the handle because of the way it fits in my hand. And I am having a little trouble with my hand today because of all the components that I made for this necklace. But this is just a simple spiraling motion. Once you get it started, it goes really easily. And I am just going to continue to spiral this all the way down to the end of the length of wire that I cut. And I also love making my own jump rings because this wire has an anti-tarnish coating on it. So I find that when I make my own jump rings, I add a lot of longevity to my piece. I don't look at it. I'm in Florida, so we have a lot of humidity, and you know, we wear a lot of sleeveless things and a lot of collarless things because of the heat. So our jewelry touches our skin, and we wear sunscreen. And so I tend to think about those things like tarnish and, you know, longevity of a piece because of where I live. Jewelry takes a beating from us, from us Floridians. And then I am simply going to find where I started, so that first little coil, and take the flat side of my sharpest cutters, and I'm just going to cut through one length at a time, and you get beautiful jump rings that way. So it doesn't take very long, it doesn't take very much wire, and I really enjoy making my own jump rings. And I have been thinking about doing a video on making your own findings. So if any of you are interested in seeing a video that way, leave it in the comments below and let me know. I know that a lot of jewelry makers on YouTube have shown making your own findings, so I don't want to be redundant if it's not something anyone is interested in. But I do have a really unique finding that I make, and I was thinking maybe I would do it all together. It's a finding that is a hanger for a donut, gemstone donut bead. Your last little loop is usually not a good one, so I'll just toss that little piece, but then I have some jump rings here ready to go. And then this part is just alternating these components and connecting them. So on this other side of the necklace, I ended both ends with the shorter, the pearl component. And so that is going to be the same thing that I do. I'm going to start with a jump ring and just connect every other one. A pearl component, what can I say? A pearl component, a tubular tube component, and just go all the way to the end. I counted to make sure that I was going to have the exact same length and the exact same number of components. And I just want to make sure that my jump rings are closed really well. And I think on my other one, I ended up not even setting my pliers down. I just kept going. And this, like for me, this part of a necklace, this when you get everything made and you're at the part of just putting it all together and connecting it, and it starts to come to life and take the shape that was in your sketchbook or in your head. Oh, it's just so exciting. It's so joyful. And it has been a difficult day here. We have a really sick family member and we may lose her. And we're actually headed to the hospital tomorrow as soon as we are able to. We have to travel for it. And I have to say, over the years, and today was no exception, making jewelry has been a great way to manage stress and negative emotions and engage my brain on something positive and not all the dark what ifs. And so today was one of those days where a project like this, where I had a lot of components to make and a lot of connecting to do, was just wonderful. And over the years, that's been the case for me. When I paused the camera, I did a few things. I made some much smaller jump rings, which will go on my magnetic clasp. And I love magnetic clasp, but especially when I have made my own jump rings and made my own chain, because I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the coating on the chain, but the magnets don't grab it. So I'm going to use a magnetic clasp. And then I also made the design decision, since I have one of these cathedral beads here, I am going to use another one on either side at the top where my chain attaches. And that is one of the secrets of a good design, is to keep things cohesive and keep the elements that you've started with sort of reappearing, even if it's not a lot, but reappearing in the piece. And then to the eye, when you look at it, there's something pleasing and coordinating about it. So I decided that even though these are a little larger than I would like and they look great down here, I think it's still going to be really pretty at the top of my design. So I normally start from the bottom up, and I guess there's no reason we can't do that today. So just to show you again, I have two alternating sections of the chain that I made with my rescued from an old necklace upcycled drops on the end. And I'm going to take a jump ring. I stopped and made some more jump rings as well. This design does require quite a few jump rings, but they are so easy to make. And then if I make extras, I keep my wire in a bag. And if I make extras or have extras, I put them in that little bag with the wire, so I know exactly what those jump rings are made out of. So there is that, and I actually looks like I may even be short a jump ring. Let's see. I have an extra one, so that I keep a little baggie of the ones that I've made, because I want a jump ring here at the top as well. And I counted, but looks like I need to take my last one that I made. Put a jump ring right on the top of this, and here's where we start connecting all of those components that we made. And this is the exciting part, because this will start to take shape. I get excited sometimes at this point and make mistakes, because as it starts to come together, and here's where I will also check the orientation of my loops and make sure that everything is going to hang the way that I want it, and it looks like it is going to be perfect, because that way if I need to change the orientation of anything with an extra jump ring, I can. And so here I'm going to connect these vertical bars to the horizontal bar on the bottom of my first square component. And again, on a piece like this, I find it a little bit easier to leave everything laying on the mat, so I hope you can see what I'm doing. just grabbing the loops in the order in which I want them to be threaded on. I paused because the first time that I picked up my necklace to see how things were hanging, because this is the time to check the orientation of those loops on a piece like this that is so many segments, and I did not like the way the downward triangular bars were hanging with jump rings in there. So I connected those together and I like it so much better. It's more seamless. It looks like more one piece. And then the other thing to make my two little drops hang properly, a really small jump ring at the top and the bottom of that cathedral bead just made everything hang much better. So this is going to be off camera for a bit, but I'm going to continue the connecting now that I've corrected those things. And so if you're going to do this project, this will be the time. And as I did one section at a time, just check and see what the orientation when it's hanging of your loops, because sometimes when things are on the mat, they will hang differently when it's on a person or when you pick it up off the mat. So, but it's an easy fix. You know, you just have to decide if you want to take away a jump ring or add a jump ring, and just look at the way it's making things hang. And also when you're connecting, you want to make sure that you're not twisting things. That is easy to do. I want to make sure that I'm connecting each side either at the bottom of, this is not going to make sense, but at the bottom of the, let me hold it up and show you. So I'm connecting the jump ring at the top of these loops and at the bottom of the loop in front. And then we get that nice, pretty connection and lovely negative space. And I hadn't realized in the design until it's connected, but my pearls are just lining up beautifully and adding to the beauty of this design. So let me keep going. As I said, this is the really exciting part, and I'm loving the way it's coming together. But we do have to make adjustments in designs, especially when it's something, for me at least, when it's been in my head or when I was inspired by a shape or a picture or something I saw in a fashion show, and then I have to get it out of my head and into reality. There are, design things to work out almost always. But that is the joy and just the thrill of it all. So we'll see when I get to my cathedral beads at the top of the connecting if I also need to add in some jump rings. I made some extras of the 6mm and of those little 4mm. This is so pretty. I know it's going to be out of the camera, but I just want to pick it up and just see how it's looking. It is stunning. I am loving this piece. And now we are at the top where I think I'm going to keep those cathedral beads. I have had a debate about this part of the design since I started making components. So I've made 2 cathedral beads with the simple loops, and I'm just going to give it a try and see how it hangs and see how I feel about the way that it looks. That is all. That's the only solution, is to do it and have a look at it. And there again, with making jewelry, that is just the beauty of making jewelry, is that connecting and disconnecting or cutting apart a component and making it different is not difficult, and you don't waste much material, and it's not stressful. And I just find that there's almost nothing in jewelry design that I can't find a solution to, and I love the challenge of each piece. So let's see. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. As I said, I've been debating about these beads since I started. Let's separate. My two chains are exactly, my two lengths of chain are exactly alike. Sometimes I think I love this when I'm making a video, and then when I go put it on my little mannequin and do the final photographs, I'll change my mind. It's a different angle, a different viewpoint. So if that happens when I edit, I try to tell you guys that I made changes in case, you know, it affects the project that you're doing if you're trying to go by my selections and my measurements. So I will do my best with that. And so I also usually try to tell you if this is a beginner friendly project or intermediate, and I would say it's definitely beginner friendly, but maybe not for a complete beginner, only because working out this pattern so that these are exactly the same length and so that this is spaced, and then if you want any kind of a design that is strung into the beads when you attach the components, I am not sure how difficult that would be for somebody who is a total beginner. Maybe it depends on your background. With my design background, I don't usually struggle too much with those selections, but I know that can be a challenge when you're new at it and you just don't have experience. But the more that you do, the more you start to see things and, you know, have a good sense of the right scale and the right color and, you know, shape and all of that. So I would say it's beginner friendly, except for the maybe choosing your patterns and getting those lengths just right on those center components. So yeah, on the magnetic clasp, this is really simple because there isn't even a right or left side like there are with lobster claw clasps if you're trying to do it for a right or left-handed person. And so this is, I may see the magnetic clasp grabs my pliers, but I don't know if it's the coating on the chain, but it does not grab this chain. So I think it's a great choice of a clasp for a necklace where I've made my own jump rings and made my own chain out of that Bead-A-Lon coated wire. Final closure. Oh my goodness, this is the most exciting part. Let me clear away the jump rings. Oh, I just love it. I'm going to pull it out of the camera for just one moment and just hold it up in the air. It is gorgeous, and I think I really do love the cathedral beads at the top of the design. I know it's impossible to put the entire thing on my beading mat, but I will definitely do some film of it for you at the end. This is a stunning design, and I have to tell you, I've had this necklace that I upcycled these from for quite a few years, and I wanted to do something special. It was one of those things that just appealed to me, and I even did an internet search for some of these icicle or pointed kind of drops, and I did not find anything. And so I have had these on in a work tray, in a project tray on the side of my work table for a really long time, and I've done several sketches on how to feature those drops because it was just something that spoke to me. And I have to say, I am absolutely delighted with this piece, and I am definitely keeping this for myself. I make a lot of jewelry, I donate a lot, I give away a lot, but this is a piece that I absolutely love, and it will stay in my jewelry wardrobe. I really appreciate you all watching and spending time with me today, and I hope this was inspiring, gave you some ideas. Maybe you can adjust the design and make it your own. And so I hope you're all safe and well and having fun on your beading mats. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao, jewelry makers.